bro, we're talking about Randy Orton here, who can take care of himself.
Yeah, yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I'm saying? And we don't know what went down. We don't know what was discussed, but I don't think Randy Orton needs Chris Jericho to fight his battles for him.
Speaking of distancing from Vince McMahon, after being there from 1999 to 2018, 19, nearly 19, 20 years, he dedicated his life to WWE. He seemed like he was a WWE lifer, and he had plenty of podcasts saying that he's never going to go anywhere else. He jumped ship to AEW, Chris Jericho. He said in a recent interview that he talked about this before, but he recently brought a little bit more detail in just how he was feeling. Back in 2016, we were talking about SummerSlam. During SummerSlam season, the main event was Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar, and a part of the match was Brock Lesnar opening up Orton the hard way. He just did some shoot elbow shots and forearm shots and just busted Orton open the hard way. Just had a pool of blood, and basically that was the end of the match. And Jericho was hot about it. He approached Brock Lesnar and he was like, you know what, you're bigger than me, you're better than me, basically, with a bunch of expletives. With that, I don't care. I basically die for what I believe in. So here's the thing, Vince. You've worked with Jericho before. I'm interested in knowing that, from a character standpoint, from your experience with Jericho, how was he, and did he stand up for stuff like that? And then two, just your overall thoughts on why he stood up for that, especially if Orton, agreed to it. As far as that's what we know about it, Orton just didn't let him do that. He agreed to it. Why do you think Jericho would stand up for something like that?
That's a great question, bro. First of all, bro, listen, Jericho's father, I remember growing up watching the New York Rangers. Jericho's father played for the Rangers, legit tough guy. Jericho's a legit tough guy. No doubt about it, bro. He's a no-nonsense guy. He's not going to take crap from anybody, But he's not the bully type that's going to instigate anything at all. He's not that guy. But if you screw with him, I don't think you realize what you're getting yourself into. That's the interesting question to me, though, Chris. Bro, we're talking about Randy Orton here, who can take care of himself.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And we don't know what went down. We don't know what was discussed, but I don't think Randy Orton needs Chris Jericho to fight his battles for him. So like that's the only part I really don't understand. Bro, if it were a rookie, if it was just somebody starting out in the business and, like Brock took advantage, that's one thing for a veteran to stand up and say, bro, But I mean, Orton's been around longer than Lesnar, I think, right?
So they came in the same class.
Exactly, they did. Yeah. So I don't know what Jericho's motivation would be unless they were thinking of booking Jericho against Lesnar, and Jericho brought that up. Like, let me just tell you something. If you ever try that with me, you know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe those were the circumstances, because one thing, Jericho's not a troublemaker, bro. I mean, he is absolutely not that guy. So I don't know what would have led him to confront Lesnar.
Yeah, as far as I know a lot of wrestlers in the business, and they've just about all of them I know spoke highly of Jericho. Being a very charitable guy. I know that I'm good friends with Rico Constantino.
Very charitable, yes.
And, I mean, I started a GoFundMe for Rico a few years back when he was down in the dumps. He's doing very well now, but he was having some really bad health issues some years back, probably 6 or 7 years back. And I started the GoFundMe page for him and just really helped him out with that. And just, we raised a ton of money and Jericho donated to it.
Yeah.
And so, I really, from an outside of, wrestling standpoint, you know what I mean? The Jericho donating in the GoFundMe page that I created for Rico, that to me was like, you know what, you are right with me. You know what I mean?
And he does that all the time, bro.
Yeah.
Every time you see a wrestler in need, every time Jericho's name is always there, bro.
It is.
Always
It
there.
is. Yeah.
It was there
There's
with,
been other.
Jimmy Rave. I
Yep.
remember
Jimmy
with Jimmy
Rave.
Rave. I
Yep.
mean, it's always there.
Absolutely. Yep. He's been, there's been a few other times where I've heard that Jericho donated to some funds for
Yeah,
wrestlers. So I appreciate that. And
yeah,
like I said, knowing, and you've worked with him, knowing him from a backstage standpoint. And I'm cool with Rico and a whole bunch of other wrestlers who've worked with Jericho. They've spoke highly of him. So it does make me wonder, like, what was it that Jericho didn't know? Because at the end of the day, it still boils down to, Orton. I mean, if Orton didn't agree for Lesnar to shoot, open him up, Orton's, what, 6'5", what I mean,
yeah,
245, 240. He could stand on his own, I mean, he
yeah.
can do his thing. And the thing is, I think that even if there was some disadvantage and Lesnar could take Orton, I think from a backstage standpoint, the boys would much rather support Orton in this endeavor than Lesnar, from knowing that he was the one who opened him up. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
it's interesting to know that. Now, interesting enough, before we pivot over, you work with Jericho, but Jericho was in WCW before, and he had him and Lesnar's, they really didn't have a really good relationship, but he didn't have a big relationship. He didn't have the best relationship with Goldberg either, though, because Goldberg wanted to feud with him. I mean, he wanted to feud with Goldberg, and he said that he can make a bunch of money and the whole Ralphus thing and stuff like that. And interestingly enough, Goldberg didn't want anything to do with them. You know what I mean? Do you think that was a missed opportunity, that Jericho and Goldberg never really had a thing? I know that when Goldberg came in WWE back in 03, they kind of had a thing, but it was at that point, it was a few years too late as far as the
Well,
money.
I see that's the thing, bro. I don't think Jericho really hit his stride and got to superstar status till he was with the WWE.
Yeah, true.
I really don't believe that. So you got to understand, from Goldberg's point of view, when he's at WCW, of course, everybody wants to work with Goldberg.
Sure. Yeah.
Money. So everybody wants to work with Goldberg. So, Goldberg, I'm sure has to be selective. And listen, man, let's be honest. Jericho was not at Goldberg's level at that point in time. So I could see Goldberg putting the X-nay on it. But once he went to the WWE and his stock really started to rise, I mean, at that point, I think it really would have been beneficial for them to do something with meaning. But I don't think Jericho was at his level at WCW.
Yeah, well, he definitely wasn't. But I think the whole Ralphus thing was so over. He was television champion at that point. He was pretended that, he had the belt. He was pretending to be world champ. He kept saying, he count out victories against Goldberg that really didn't happen. And
Right.
he even said in interviews that he didn't even care if Goldberg just came out and just absolutely squashed him. You know what I mean?
Right.
He wanted to.
Oh yeah, he wouldn't care. He wouldn't care.
Yeah, he wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that's my last question when it comes to Jericho. Like, Jericho is one of my all-time favorite. He's in my top 5 all-time favorite. But if I would have one critique toward Chris Jericho, it was that some people didn't cross that line of all-time greats because I think that they were too selfless, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, if you think of, like, among the all-time greats, like the Takers, the Hogans, the Warriors, you know what I mean, as far as like names, Hogan's, Austin, even, they went to business for themselves and they really protected their brand. You know what I mean? Because I think from a Jericho standpoint, he put people over like, Evan Bourne, Matt Sydal, nice guy. I've had him on my show plenty of times, but super nice guy. But he didn't really beating Chris Jericho didn't really mean much at that time. You know what I mean? He did that with a few people that he would put him over, but the WWE wouldn't do their part in getting the wrestler over. Do you think in the long run, when it comes to a career trajectory, do you think that hurt Chris Jericho?
Yeah, it probably did, bro. I'll be honest with you. The very last show when me and Ed jumped to WCW, I met with WCW on a weekend.
Mhm.
The Raw show was already written, and bro, Ferrara and myself, we had Jericho beating The Rock.
Mhm.
And that would have catapulted Chris Jericho. And bro, that entire show, the only thing they changed was that finish. And they put Rock over Jericho. And bro, I'm telling you, it took them 2 more years
Oh yeah.
to get Jericho to the spot
Yep.
that he would have been if he beat Rock that night.
Yep.
With they literally wasted 2 years of the guy's time. And why did they do it, bro? Because he was a WCW guy and all that BS that goes along with it. So yeah, bro, Jericho, the problem is, and the reality of it is, Jericho really is a nice guy. And, you know, Jericho is not going to screw somebody else, and he's not going to play locker room politics. That's just not who he is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, bro, in that business, that's going to hurt you. It
is, man. I agree. I mean, some of the best names are people who went to business for themselves numerous times and didn't. And people always say, you know, wins and losses don't matter. Tell that to Hogan, you know, tell that to Austin, tell that to Goldberg, tell that to Lesnar. You know what I mean? Like that, they do matter, because when you think about it from a career perspective, most of the all-time greats never lost, or lost very rarely. You can throw Flair in there, you know, I mean, as far as someone who lost often.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, he's a career heel for the most part. Of course, he has some babyface runs, but he had a career heel. His character far superseded the wins and losses.
Yeah.
And that's what actually helped Flair from a career perspective, because he's going to lose at the end, but he's going to stack up some wins, and he's going to have the Horseman jump you. He's going to do some really heelish things to make you hate him. And then the payoff is him giving you that win.
Right.
And that type of formula we don't see that in pro wrestling anymore.
Nope, absolutely. Yep.
So yeah, I think that Jericho, I think from a career perspective, I wish that he would have, you know, been a little. And I'm a selfless guy. I'm a huge proponent of selflessness, just from a personal standpoint. But from a business standpoint, you got to protect your brand.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, that's the bottom line with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, what is also the bottom line, because Vince Russo said so, is this guy right here, who always protects his brand. As a matter of fact, he protects his brand so much he even has his own brand, and that brand is what is it called?
ChannelAttitude.com, guys. Go check it out. There's multiple, many shows under that umbrella. ChannelAttitude.com.
ChannelAttitude.com.
Yes.
Vince Russo, if you have one final thought to give to Chris Jericho about his career, what would you say? What would you tell Chris Jericho?
You did the right thing. You did the right thing, because Chris, here's the bottom line, and you'll appreciate this, bro. The most important thing is, I don't care who you are, I don't care what position you're in, I don't care what company you work with. At the end of the day, you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror. You got to be able to look your wife in the eye. You got to be able to look your kids in the eye. That's all that matters. Yep. That's really all that matters. The wrestling, bro, is a job. Yeah. It's nothing more than that. You're going to work just like everybody else. And there's no question in my mind that after decades and decades and decades in the business, Chris Jericho can look himself in the mirror and be proud of who he is.
Very nice, man. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, Vince Russo, Dr. Chris Jericho, we're putting you over as if you need it. You don't need it, but we're going to put you over anyways. But I will, as a fan of Chris Jericho for 25 years, protect your brand. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Riding with Russo, Vince Russo, Dr. Chris. We are out of here. Solo.